Engines now throttling down, now at 67% as Endeavour prepares to pass through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
Endeavour Houston, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
1 minute, 20 seconds into the flight. Endeavour is now 7 miles from the launch site, altitude 11 nautical miles. Now traveling 2,400 feet per second, or about 1,700 miles per hour. The next event is burnout of the solid rocket boosters. That occurs at about 2 minutes.
Endeavour Houston, UHF comm check. How do you read?
Sid, we got you loud and clear on UHF.
This is the 25th flight of the shuttle since the Challenger accident back in the mid-'80s. This is the first time NASA has done 25 successful launches in a row. Again, this is the second flight of Endeavour, the shuttle that was built to replace the Challenger. What you're seeing now, the solid rocket boosters being ejected, and now the shuttle is going on the power of its 3 main engines.
Confirmed.
Looks like a very good separation of the solid rockets, and in fact this whole launch procedure has gone extremely smoothly. 7 astronauts on board, international crew, first Japanese astronaut, first married couple, first African-American astronaut.
Tony,
Endeavour Houston, performance.
what are some of the experiments they're going to be working on in the coming week?
A lot of the experiments are deal with crystal growth, effects of weightlessness. There are some frogs that will be fertilized in space to see how the lack of gravity affects certain sensors in the frogs that are believed to develop early after fertilization. A couple of carps are on board also to check effects of weightlessness. In fact, and hornets. In fact, NASA refers to this as almost a Noah's Ark of the space program. Hornets are on board as part of an Israeli experiment to see if hornets build their cones, build their cones in different shapes in a weightless environment. The crew will be working in 2 12-hour shifts. They're split into two groups working in 12-hour shifts, so it'll be round the clock for a week. In fact, NASA says that during this mission, viewers will get perhaps the best idea so far of what it will be like on a space station when the astronauts are on a space station, because it is a lot of work. The kinds of things that we have seen in previous shuttle missions, the dramatic satellite rescues, that sort of thing, even the last shuttle mission where there was the tethered satellite, you will not see that kind of drama here. But as I say, it is more like the kind of experiments to expect on a space station. The Japanese are very interested in this because they plan to be partners in space station freedom, and as I said, the Japanese look at this as really an initial step towards space, and so this will be an important joint U.S.-Japanese mission. Ralph?
Tony Clark, thank you very much. A beautiful morning in Florida, a beautiful launch, and Endeavour is on its way. And CNN Weekend continues right after this.
Houston, go at throttle up.
Okay, Houston, go at throttle up.
3 engines on Columbia now back at full throttle. Good hydraulic systems, good electrical systems. Altitude at 12 miles. Columbia is 9 miles east of the launch pad. Current speed 2,100 miles an hour. Columbia
Columbia has now burned more than 2.5 million pounds of propellant since its liftoff. Shuttle now weighs less than half of what it did a minute and 50 seconds ago. Flight controller is now standing by for burnout and separation of the twin solid rockets.
Right now you can see the two SRBs, the solid rocket boosters, have separated. The shuttle is about 28 to 30 miles up right now. Those SRBs are going to fall into the Atlantic Ocean, cushioned by parachutes, and they will be picked up and be reused. The large external fuel tank that's strapped to the shuttle is the only non-reusable part of the shuttle. It provides the fuel in the form of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen for the shuttle. When it falls off, it falls into pieces in the atmosphere over the Indian Ocean. Right now, the shuttle is going in apparently a good trajectory.
Landing in the event of an engine failure. 3 engines continue to operate well at full throttle. Also, Columbia's performance is right on target at this point. Altitude 39 miles, downrange from the launch pad 60 miles. Columbia traveling 3,500 miles an hour.
As we said, the Columbia is going to be prepared for insertion into orbit for a 10-day mission. Right now, they're in a position where if something went wrong, they could try to land the shuttle at one of 2 locations in Spain or in Morocco. Once the shuttle is inserted in orbit, the 10-day mission opens up tomorrow with the launch of the Legios satellite, a mirrored ball that scientists will fire laser beams at from the surface of the Earth and try to deduce whether Earth's crustal plates are moving and thereby perhaps be able to predict earthquakes in the future. We've lost sight of the shuttle now on the NASA cameras. And now it's peeking back through the clouds again. Apparently a successful launch for the shuttle Columbia. This was the 13th launch of the shuttle. When the shuttle was first launched was April of 1981. That was the first flight of the Columbia. This is the oldest vehicle in the system. And for now, it appears as if this was a successful shuttle launch. And we'll return to Sonia Live after this. For now, I'm Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Atlanta.
And so what NASA ground controllers chose to do was simply wait for the sun to burn off that ice, for the ice to melt. They have kind of a small window of opportunity here because there is a cold front moving into this part of Florida, and so there is a window of opportunity for them to launch. This is a 7-day mission that the 5 military crew members are headed on. They're in the final minute of the countdown here. Here you can see it's counting down just to the 1-minute mark.
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Everything else, all the other facets of this launch have gone smoothly. The weather has been the only problem. Let's listen to the final 48 seconds of the countdown.
T-minus 45 seconds. Coming up for a go for auto sequence start. We have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's 4 onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. 20. T-minus 15 seconds. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery on a 7-day mission for the Department of Defense.
Houston is now controlling. Discovery is maneuvering onto course.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Roll maneuvers complete. Placing Discovery and crew on the proper heading. Engines at 100%. Engines are throttling back now, helping ease Discovery through the dense lower altitudes as it continues to accelerate rapidly. Engine throttles are now at 73%. Discovery's already traveling over 700 miles per hour. Re-engine is 73%. Discovery's passing through the range of maximum dynamic pressure, and 3 engines are throttling back up.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
All engines are now running at full throttle, and all systems are performing well. Altitude is now 68,000 feet. Discovery is traveling over 1,000 miles per hour. Over the next 60 seconds, as Discovery continues to climb at a relatively steep angle, the vehicle's rate of speed will virtually triple. The solid rocket boosters, each providing up to 3 1/3 million pounds of thrust, will burn out and separate at about 2 minutes 4 seconds. Time now 1 minute 48 seconds. Altitude 114,000 feet, downrange 18 nautical miles. Booster chamber pressure is beginning to diminish. We're standing by for staging.
What you're seeing there now are the solid rocket boosters being set free. The shuttle is running simply on its external tank. This is the start of a 7-day mission. It will be an unusual mission. This is supposed to be the last military Department of Defense mission for the shuttle. It will be unusual because it is part classified and part unclassified. Once the astronauts get on orbit, they will go into what is virtually a news blackout while they deploy what is believed to be a Defense Department spy satellite over the Middle East. That deployment set about 6 hours into the mission. Then once that is done, they will go into secondary payloads, and we will be able to hear more about what the astronauts are doing. The traditional kinds of things that we often see during shuttle missions, shots of the shuttle's payload bay and Earth views, will not be seen during this mission because of the classified nature of this mission. Even shots of the payload bay will not be beamed down. NASA, the military, does not want to give any indication of the kind of even the carrier system used to deploy the satellite. There are a variety of other things that will be done aside from the deployment of the spy satellite. One of the things, a camera will be taken on board and tried out. This is a unique camera that when it takes a picture, it marks the latitude and longitude of the site photograph. That was a first. They will also be doing some tissue tests, and one thing, an unusual test, will be to release 6 spheres, 6 little metal balls, 2-inch, 4-inch, and 6 inches in diameter, and those will be used as part of a test of orbital debris. It's an increasing problem in space, the amount of space junk, and one of the things NASA wants to do is try and calibrate its radar so it can identify the size of space junk. It is an important consideration in creating a space station because of the amount of floating materials, both from discarded rockets and satellites that have only partially burned up as they orbit the Earth. What we have seen this morning is another picture-perfect launch. It was 85 minutes behind schedule. Again, the problem, combination of low temperatures at the Kennedy Space Center and ice forming on the external tank when they put in the 500,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen. And everything is go. There was some concern about clouds, but everything looks like it will be is set for this 6-day mission. 5 astronauts on board. About 6 hours into the mission, they'll deploy a TDRS satellite. Also on this mission, there's a 5-hour spacewalk and some interactive television with elementary school students around the country. Just 1 minute away from the launch. Everything the ground controllers say is going well.
Ready for start.
Let's listen in.
The heaters around the joints of the solid rocket boosters are being turned off. The residual hydrogen burn igniters have now been armed. They'll fire at T-minus 10 seconds to burn off any residual hydrogen under the main engine nozzles. Sound suppression water system will start at T-minus 16. Standing by for the handoff. T-minus 31 seconds.
Go for auto sequence start.
Endeavor's onboard computers now controlling.
25.
Flight data recorders now recording. Booster hydraulic power units have started.
15.
Sound suppression water system is working. Safety inhibits removed.
TLS is go for main engine start.
7, 6, main engine's up and running. 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour with NASA's newest tracking station in the sky.
Hold program, Houston.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour's on its way, and it's rolled to a course due east away from the launch pad for its trip to orbit. Seconds since liftoff. Endeavour's already traveling 450 miles an hour. Altitude 1.5 miles. Downrange from the launch pad 1 mile east. 3 engines now throttled back to 2/3 throttle to prepare the spacecraft to pass through the area of maximum air pressure.
Endeavour Houston, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
Endeavour's back at full throttle. Speed now 1,400 miles an hour, 8 miles east of the launch pad, altitude 11.5 miles. A minute and 45 seconds since launch. Endeavour's already used more than 2.5 million pounds of propellant. The shuttle weighs less than half of what it did at liftoff. Altitude now 20 miles, 19 miles east of the launch pad. Current speed 2,800 miles an hour. Flight controllers standing by for burnout and jettison of the twin solid rockets. Good solid rocket booster separations confirmed. Altitude 29 miles, 36 miles east of Kennedy Space Center. Speed now 3,100 miles an hour.
Endeavour Houston, performance nominal.
Performance nominal.
Call indicating that Endeavour's performance thus far is just as planned. Speed now 3,400 miles an hour, 51 miles east of Kennedy, altitude 37 miles. Endeavour's already above most of Earth's atmosphere.
This is the third flight of the shuttle Endeavour. It's the newest shuttle in the fleet. It is the first of what are expected to be 8 shuttle flights during 1993. It's a 6-day mission, 5 astronauts on board. 4 of the 5 are veterans. Susan Helms, the only rookie on board. The first thing that we will see, the first major activity on board the shuttle, will be about 6 hours from now. That's when the astronauts will deploy the TDRS satellite. That's a $200 million communications satellite. It's a satellite that joins a network of 4 other satellites, which allows NASA to ground controllers to talk to the shuttles. It also allows for communication between scientific and military satellites. This one will be put into a reserve status. A couple of the other satellites in the network are aging. They are not able to function as well as NASA believes they should, and so at some point this one will be brought online to replace one of those. Then later in the week, the astronauts will take part in an interactive program with elementary school students around the country demonstrating toys. The astronauts say that the students may find that by watching them play with toys in space, what they'll end up doing is learning about science and learning about physics from space. And then on Sunday, there is a 5-hour spacewalk that's planned. NASA wants to gain more information about what it's like to work in space, because spacewalks are going to become a frequent occurrence as the space station is being built. NASA ground controllers want to learn as much about the realities of working in space as they can. They say right now there is not necessarily a good correlation about the amount of time it takes astronauts who are training in water at the Johnson Space Center, the amount of time it takes them to perform a task as it does in space. And so they want to be able to compare that and find out if, for example, a task in the water tank takes an hour, does it maybe take an hour and a half in space, maybe a little bit longer. And so those are the kinds of things that we will watch in the next week. And of course, CNN will be covering much of this shuttle mission live. I'm Tony Clark at CNN Center. Morning News is next.